Our hotel is the best in the world. At the end of the week, you will be an entirely different person.
You should always live like this. It's a wellness centre. You should get a facial. Rick, the lady in the airport thought you were my dad.
My God.
Definitely worth a watch. And wellness resorts like the White Lotus are the way to a sustainably profitable future for destinations that have what it takes. Palm Cove has what it takes, and if we choose to position ourselves in that space, we will have a tourism future that works for everybody. Those pics of Double Island in that Lotus clip were part of a consultancy from 20 years ago when Double was an intimate, exclusive small island resort similar to the White Lotus, without the murder and mayhem. My name is John Phelan, and I founded Palm Cove Vision in 2023 to surface the sensible options for Palm Cove going forward. Options that work. I've lived in Palm Cove with my family for 40 years, this July in fact, and been involved in tourism and hospitality for almost all of my working life, here at the Cove, elsewhere in Australia and internationally. Since starting my own business, Phelan Consulting and Event Services, almost 30 years ago now, I've consulted for all tiers of government and the private sector and conducted high-end corporate events throughout our region. If you're considering investing around 45 minutes of your time in this video, you deserve to know why. In this vid, we'll be posing questions and commenting on Palm Cove issues such as, are we still a tourism destination or just another pretty tropical suburban beach? The failed Palm Cove master plan, the old zoo site park and ride fantasy, and the bridge for nobody to nowhere, the stolen funding for the Captain Cook Highway, and the 2032 Olympic Triathlon. While Palm Cove shares the tranquil wellness services of destinations like the White Lotus, such as yoga, meditation, and sleep therapy, for example, we also offer everything from gentle rainforest walks through cycling, foiling and kayaking to high-intensity, heart-pumping experiences such as mountain biking, beach boot camps, surf carnivals, Ironman events and adrenaline-fueled experiences. Think bungee jumping, whitewater rafting. We're all about health and vitality. Add a touch of romance and the package is complete. We're renowned for our destination weddings and honeymooners love us. So there we are. The brand writes itself. Health, vitality and romance. And where are we? In the tropics. A master plan needs a vision, and a vision needs a master plan. Health, vitality and romance in the tropics is the vision. Next step is the master plan. I hear you say, but don't we already have a Palm Cove master plan? Well, we almost did a couple of years ago, but we're not there yet. Last year, a few months after the current council was voted in, councillors got together, at Palm Cove as it turns out, to step back and take an objective look at the big picture challenges facing council right across the Cairns Regional area. The already approved Palm Cove Streetscape and Landscape Master Plan, the one you're thinking of, came up for discussion. Our Division 9 councillor, and now Deputy Mayor, Councillor Olds, says it best. Here is a snippet from his weekly broadcast on Cairns Community Radio 89.1 in August last year. Over to you, Councillor Olds.
Okay guys, welcome back to This Week with Brett Olds. It's time for another week. You got your host here, me, Brett Olds. The Streetscape and Landscape Master Plan that Council did over the last couple of years. It started off being a master plan, dropped down to Streetscape and Landscape Master Plan, and then became a set of guiding principles that were totally unfunded. So we got to talk about the complete failings of Council with regards to that process. We did a really great consultation and our officers did a good job. I'm not blaming the officers, I'm blaming the elected council. At the last council, we failed, and I was part of that.
So, it's back to the drawing board for the Palm Cove Master Plan. More about that later. Council estimated that the cost of producing the now abandoned plan was around $150,000. And although as ratepayers it isn't good news to spend that amount of money without a result, more importantly, the real cost is in leaving us without a clear way forward, which has resulted in multiple distractions and thought bubbles, lacking even the most basic critical thinking and assessment. The best example, but unfortunately not the only one, of a number of seriously flawed proposals that have emerged was one by the business advocacy group Advance Palm Cove. The proposal was for Cairns Regional Council and the state government to partner in the purchase and development of the old Cairns Tropical Zoo site on the highway at Clifton Beach for a primary school and a park and ride station to address parking issues on the Palm Cove waterfront. There's nothing wrong with brainstorming ideas over a beer or three. Great things can happen with brainstorming. And Robert Vandenhoven, who initiated Advance Palm Cove, has done a remarkable job in convincing Councillor Olds and subsequently Council to support the concept and request millions of dollars from the state government with not even the most basic critical thinking and proof of concept behind the request. Council even made it the priority for Palm Cove. The answer to the park and ride zoo site idea for me and everybody I've spoken to was no, or a more colourful version of no. It fails at the first hurdle. Why do people visit the Palm Cove waterfront? Why? In my experience, just to hang out and go for a walk, maybe have a swim, maybe lunch or dinner or a coffee, do a bit of shopping, get a massage, maybe make a business visit to a client, replenish brochure racks, perhaps a tradie doing some work, employees going to work or guests checking into accommodation. How many of those users are going to park 2 kilometres away and wait for and catch a bus to the waterfront and back and presumably pay for parking and the transport? None. How did this happen? Why has Council supported this concept? I've engaged with Councillor Olds and others, but nobody can come up with a rational answer. I understand park and ride. We have a very good, successful example here in Cairns. The Better Cairns Airport parking station has been operating for almost 20 years and is very popular. And it works because people are away from their cars overnight at the very least, and mostly for 2 or 3 days. That's not the case in Palm Cove, where people are mostly away from their cars for minutes or hours, not days. As far as I've been able to determine, no research is available to support the purchase of the old zoo site for the primary school and park and ride. A previous councillor I spoke to said that they were unaware of any council funding submissions of this scale ever going to the state or federal governments without at least some fundamental proof of concept. The need for a primary school in that location was dismissed almost immediately by the Labor Education Minister of the day. When asked by the Cairns Post, Ms Bree James MP, while still seeking election for Barron River at the time, said that she supported a plan to deliver another school in the Northern Beaches if that's what local families wanted. She went on to say, and I quote, "Planning for a new school and its associated infrastructure, in particular roads and transportation, takes time." In other words, I'm not going to support this without evidence. Thank you, Bree. A welcome injection of sanity. That took a bit of courage because it was being actively promoted by the sitting member, Craig Crawford, the popular Division 9 councillor, Brett Olds, and Advanced Palm Cove, which had a growing following in the local business community at the time. Look, I do realise that this will be getting a bit tedious, very tedious, for some of you watching this vid. And you're forgiven for switching to binge to see how things unfold at the White Lotus for Rick and Chelsea and the rest of the gang. However, I'm going to deep dive into this zoo matter because it's a worrying trend that our councillor and council seem to be making crucial decisions based on little, or in this case, no evidence, it seems. So with the primary school off the agenda, that left park and ride and the pedestrian bridge across the highway. Councillor Olds posted some information on the concept on his council Facebook page on 12 September last year. I engaged in comments on that post. We'll go through it because it highlights the core issues that need to be addressed. It's going to take a while. You have been warned. Councillor Olds opens with, "Many Northern Beaches locals have been speaking for years about the need for a better solution to traffic issues along the state-owned Captain Cook Highway." He goes on to say, this section, which is directly next to the old zoo site in Palm Cove, is slated to have another set of stoplights installed in the not too distant future. I am aware that there is a development application before Council for the old Cairns Tropical Zoo site, which, because of the commercial nature of the development, apparently required a traffic management review of the Palm Cove Boulevard Captain Cook Highway intersection. I haven't been able to find a reference to the traffic lights mentioned, but I'm just assuming that it is a requirement because of the nature of this development application. Be good to actually be able to find it though. In other words, the traffic lights only happen if the commercial development proceeds. It is not a busy intersection with hardly any traffic emanating from Bokissa and only light traffic out of Palm Cove Boulevard at the moment. Putting everything else aside, for the moment, I can't see why traffic lights are even TMR's preferred option here. As far as I'm aware, the plan's always been for a roundabout. Just looking from above, as someone who knows less than nothing about road design and construction, it looks like all of the basics have already been done in preparation for a roundabout. I just copied the roundabout up the road and pasted it here to show that it seems relatively easy to go with a roundabout. If that current development application mentioned before doesn't proceed, it seems that it will be many years before any further traffic management is needed on this intersection. One of the things that makes any traffic planning challenging, specifically between the Kawarra roundabout and Buchan's Point Palm Cove these days, is that although TMR compulsorily purchased all of the land and completed and gazetted the plan all the way through to Buchan's, when our Barron River MP Martin Tenney resigned from Parliament back in the day, his government pulled the funding for construction beyond the Kawarra roundabout. Martin was interviewed shortly after he resigned from Parliament for health reasons. Here is a clip from that interview.
Is there anything that you regret that you didn't have the opportunity to do?
But yeah, I suppose there's a few things that I'd like to have done here. I'd like to have completed another 2 lanes to the northern beaches. It's never been done, and it was allowed for, and finance was there, but it was stolen and put down on the southern access road. It needed it too, but that was my money.
So, the funding for our dual carriageway was stolen. It may not be widely known, but our current Barron River MP, Miss Bree James, as well as being the Queensland-wide Assistant Minister for Tourism, also happens to be the Queensland Assistant Minister for Early Learning, Creative Industries and all ministerial portfolios in far north Queensland, presumably including transport and main roads. Restoring that funding, Bree, would save us from having to keep coming up with band-aid solutions, which will all have to be undone down the track. With your TMR Assistant Minister status for FNQ, you should be able to just access that budget spreadsheet and move a few numbers around. Eh? Here's a bit of local trivia. Lee Ratcliffe tells me that Warren Street had to be created because TMR couldn't resume enough land at the Cedar Road Captain Cook Highway intersection to build a roundabout. Hence, as I understand it, rather than have to install traffic lights, they closed off Cedar Road to the highway and required Warren Street to be built where they could construct a roundabout on the highway in the future. It seems that back in the day, they did whatever possible to avoid traffic lights. Now, where was I? The post continues about the traffic lights and moves on to the entrance statement. An entrance statement is a good idea, and the proposal has been around since the 90s. It was part of the 2-lane dual carriageway plans discussed earlier. While the idea was revisited in 2022 at the Master Plan's Tourism Vision forums, and TTNQ agreed to contribute to highway entrance statement costs, this agreement, to my understanding, was dependent on Council adopting associated tourism recommendations. As this didn't occur, I don't believe TTNQ is under any current obligation to contribute to the cost. We need to solve the parking issues before funneling more casual visitation to the waterfront. With all of the other challenges facing Palm Cove, this is way down the list of priority. In the meantime, can we just have a sign like the other beaches, like this mock-up here? Moving on. Now for the bridge for nobody to nowhere, as one of our Palm Cove Vision supporters described it to me. Even if the park and ride fantasy happened, why would park and ride people need to cross the highway to a location still 2 kilometres from their destination? There isn't enough residential density to justify such a bridge. They cost millions. There is pretty much an exact replica at Gordonvale across the Bruce Highway there, so we know what's involved, and it's expensive. In that Facebook thread, I'm still waiting for an answer to my question to Councillor Olds, which is, when you say that, quote, if they, meaning council and state governments, choose to buy it, it could be a great outcome. What do you see as the great outcome? This proposal originates from Advanced Palm Cove, which was founded by Robert Vandenhoven. Robert invited me to join the group, but I declined. The reason I declined stems from my past collaboration with Robert at Tourism Palm Cove in the early 2000s. I respect his operational and management skills in food and beverage. He would be my first call for advice on a bistro venture at the Cove. However, in my experience, he has very little understanding of the destination development and marketing priorities required for Palm Cove's sustainable tourism future. Our strength is our natural environment. That is why tourists visit and stay. Yes, they eat and drink and party while they're here, but it's not why they choose the Cove. This is important because Councillor Olds seems to have adopted whatever Advanced Palm Cove has proposed when it comes to Palm Cove tourism development priorities. Embracing the zoo site proposal is just the most extreme example. Since I first engaged with Councillor Olds in 2017, when, along with other stakeholders, we walked the Ratcliffe Palm Cove Promenade concept, he has always told me that he supports it. Yet I can't see anything to indicate that he promotes it through council or in any other forum. One of the businesses that supports Palm Cove Promenade and our concept of state government supported acquisition of some or all of Lot 100L for a car park are the owners of the Reef House, David Horbelt and Malcolm Bean. In that same radio broadcast mentioned earlier in the vid, this is what Councillor Olds had to say about David and Malcolm.
The owners out there, Malcolm and David, have been trying for a while to get myself and the Mayor to go out and see what they do, because a few years ago they changed the whole way they do business, right? They can't compete with Fiji or Indonesia just from saying, yeah, we're a beachside resort. So instead of them saying, hey, yeah, we're just a beachside resort, they had to rethink the way they did business, and they wanted to be something, in their own words, remarkable and definingly different. And they've succeeded in that. And just over the last 12 to 18 months, they've won every award you can imagine. Best 5-star resort in Queensland, Best 5-star resort in Australia, and the Best 5-star resort by TripAdvisor in the Indo-Pacific. So they are really winning a whole lot, and it's not by accident. It's because they've recreated and reimagined the way they do business. They wanted us to go out and see, because they're saying, this is what the Palm Cove in general, or actually Cairns, this is what our region needs. We need to rethink how we do business and what our vision is for Cairns. And I, for one, believe that we need to take David and Malcolm's vision for what they did for their business at Reef House and put that kind of
vision or, optics over the whole of Cairns. How can we do things to be definingly different? How can we make Cairns be totally remarkable? And everything we do when we're thinking about what we're doing in this section or that section, doesn't matter if it's in Edmonton or if it's in Edge Hill or whether it's in Holloway's Beach or wherever, what the lens we've got to have over our eyes while we're looking at opportunities is how can we make this remarkable? How can we make this definingly different? I love the way they talk. They're very passionate and it's contagious,
How can we make this remarkable? How can we make this definingly different? Can I suggest that we do what Malcolm and David recommend for Palm Cove? Follow the Ratcliffe and TTNQ plan for pedestrianisation of the waterfront and compulsorily acquire Lot 100L to preserve access and parking so that we can do that. Maybe you could characterise it as remarkable and definingly different. But I think it's just common sense. So it's back to the drawing board for the Palm Cove Master Plan. We do have a starting point, however, for a workable plan, and the big picture vision for that plan is on the first page of that now abandoned streetscape and landscape plan. The introduction to the plan points out that the 1992 Palm Cove Village Strategy Plan from Taylor Ratcliffe Architects resulted in Palm Cove becoming the premier beachfront village destination it is today. Isn't that what we want going forward? A premier beachfront destination? Here is Lee Ratcliffe, the author of that plan, talking with ABC Far North just a couple of years ago. He's still very much invested, financially, professionally and personally, in the future of Palm Cove.
What's the future of Palm Cove? So I think there's a number of things at stake, and one of the things that I'm working on, being the original, the creator of the master plan that's set up all the controls that made it the village it is today, and I'm very proud of that. But I think it's a turning point where you've got to revisit that, and to revisit it, you've got to look at, seriously and objectively at it and say, well, what are the problems today and how do we fix them? And the way to fix it, I believe, and this is what I'm promoting to council, is to actually create a heritage and environment overlay of the main part of Palm Cove. So, for example, the foreshore, the esplanade, and I'm suggesting 2 blocks back from the esplanade, all become a highly protected heritage and environmental zone with clear controls. Now, this has been done all over the world. Some of the best places we visit around the world have these sort of overlays. A lot of the old towns, as I call them, in resort destinations where you've got all the new development happening on the fringe, and you need the new development for amenity, etc. But you've got to protect the old part, which is the character which created the destination in the first place. So it can be done. I'm pushing council to do it, to have the guts to create a heritage overlay, an environmental overlay over a defined area with very clear controls. Then you'll protect the destination and then people will come and enjoy it. I think that Palm Cove is one of the most special places in Australia, which is why it should be protected for the benefit of everybody. The other things, the 2 things that I'm pushing in the 2050 plan for Palm Cove is, 1, a special overlay and protection for architecture, heritage and environment, and 2, to actually close the esplanade and turn it into a beautiful pedestrian promenade. But if you keep the integrity and you get the hardware right, tourism will follow, people will enjoy the place, and you've done your job of protecting a community asset for the long term.
A few years on from the 1992 plan, Council published the 1999 Marlin Coast Landscape Master Plan, which further validated the integrity and objectives of the 1992 Ratcliffe Strategy Plan. Council officers identified the following 4 primary criteria to be addressed in the new plan. 1, reinforcing the pedestrianised theme of Williams Esplanade. 2, recognising the importance of the views to the sea and double island. 3. Expanding parking opportunities. 4. Retention of the visually prominent and iconic Melaleuca trees. It is suggested that the failure to satisfactorily address the first 3 of these criteria in particular led to the failure and abandonment of the Streetscape and Landscape Plan. Palm Cove is Cairns' only internationally marketed tourism beach destination. Didn't happen overnight. International and domestic marketing of Palm Cove began in advance of the opening of our international airport in 1984. We had a clear understanding back then of who we were and where we were headed. There was a vision. That was during the Mulgrave Shire Council days. In 1995, Mulgrave was merged with Cairns City Council. In theory, a good move. In retrospect, it now seems that, in the case of Palm Cove anyway, our original sense of character, aspiration and direction has been lost along the way. Back then, to paraphrase the Hawaiian architects who designed Ramada Great Barrier Reef Resort, I always felt that we were building a destination to lift the spirit. Over the last 20 years in particular, however, it's been residential developers that have driven the agenda for Palm Cove. In the absence of any agreed vision, destination vision, developers usually develop, understandably, in a manner that is largely reactive to market forces, rather than being guided by a cohesive plan with an agreed destination vision. This lack of strategic oversight has allowed individual development interests to shape the landscape, often in ways that are not aligned with the business and residential community's broader aspirations, to the extent that Council now finds itself with a major project being challenged in the Land and Environment Court. A lot has changed since the turn of the century. Our 2 golf courses have been replaced by residential housing. No attractions like the Cairns Tropical Zoo, for example. No conference centre. Less international marketing investment, more competition from Southeast Asia and the Western Pacific. Can we still claim to be a tourism destination, or are we just another pretty tropical suburban beach? Before setting out to create a new master plan, we need to decide if we are still a tourism destination. If, on reflection, we accept that Palm Cove no longer meets a general understanding of a tourism destination, then that is a different and much easier master plan for Council to deliver for Palm Cove. Having said that, I believe that if the right decisions are made now, Palm Cove can actually grow into an extraordinary international tourism destination. But it needs a vision that delivers the sort of tourism that works for businesses, investors, visitors, and residents. It can be done. It's tourism that has delivered the beachfront experiences that residents and visitors enjoy today, not to mention the employment opportunities and business confidence. I'd like to suggest that a successful future works best if we focus on enhancing how residents, visitors and tourists already enjoy Palm Cove. As I narrate this video, thousands of visitors are attending the Crankworx UCI Masters Mountain Bike World Championships. Just up the road, a 10-minute bike ride away.
Life is for the living. I ain't got no limits, no. I ain't got no limits. Life is for the limits, no. I ain't got no limits. Life is
Welcome to the party in paradise. We are back in the tropics of Cairns, Australia for the next stop at a Crankworx World Tour, which of course kicks off with a Rock Shocks downhill. I'm Rob Warner alongside Elliot Jackson, and Elliot, this forest has actually been here, this beautiful rainforest, since the dawn of time, and the track in it isn't far behind it. So long has it been here that we've both raced here.
That's right. I mean, I was here in 14, 16, 17. You were here in 71, 72, 73.
Yeah, all right. 96 for one of the two World Championships.
Okay.
I let that clip roll on a bit for three reasons. To capture the energy and enthusiasm that events like this bring to our region, to underline the contribution that our natural assets like the wet tropics World Heritage Rainforest plays in shaping our economy, and to remind us that Smithfield Mountain Bike Park has been around for over 30 years, thanks to the vision and persistence of one man, Glenn Jacobs. We're home to Cairns Surf Lifesaving Club, the annual Cairns Airport Ironman Triathlon, more about that one later, the start of the Grand Fondo family bike ride to Port Douglas, the start of the Wangetti Trail from the south, and the Northern Beaches Leisure Trail from the north. There's yoga and Pilates, there's massage, there's even sleep therapy. And this health and vitality theme even flows through to our residential streets, where individuals have small businesses that offer wellness services for the mind and body. Let's not forget romance. There is a natural and unique intimacy about Palm Cove. The rainforest escarpment rises close in from the west, with Buchan's in close from the north. Double Island and Scout's Hat draw the horizon close in from the east, and we have the living canopy of beach almonds and melaleucas above. Sound romantic? It is, and it is one of the reasons why we are so popular for destination weddings in particular. Because of the number of guests involved in a destination wedding and the flow-on benefits to all of the other businesses associated with weddings, this is a priority sector for us, and we're good at it. Of course, there are other things about the Cove, such as our restaurants and wine bars that attract visitors. But when it comes to positioning Palm Cove in the tourism space, we need to headline our USPs, our unique selling propositions. In the absence of a clearly defined brand, local marketers have reached out for vague taglines such as sophisticated simplicity, barefoot glamour, and ultimate serenity. It's not necessary. Let's get to the point. At Palm Cove Vision, we believe that our USP is health, vitality, and romance in the tropics. This is the sort of core vision that should underpin a revised Palm Cove master plan. A vision that will influence infrastructure development, a vision that gives investors a clear understanding of where we're heading. We know we need a workable master plan urgently that works for residents, tourism, and other stakeholders. A plan with the sort of direction and guidance that allows developers, councillors, and council officers to work towards the same goals. This is not just a Cairns responsibility. It is a state responsibility as well. At a recent meeting with Ms Bree James MP, the concept of a proposal for state government funding towards a revised Palm Cove Master Plan was well received. There is also a case for the federal government to become involved in the context of the 2032 Olympic Games. Councillor Olds is pushing for the Olympic Triathlon to follow our Cairns Airport Ironman course. He was quoted in the Cairns Post recently as saying that it would be a great idea. It's the favourite Ironman course in Australia for athletes, and they vote the swim leg in particular as their number one. Of course, the swim leg is in Palm Cove, goes without saying. Is there a better way to promote Palm Cove as a health and vitality destination? I don't think so. Our own Cairns, well really Mirrawinny, World Triathlon champion Brad Bevan is based in Brisbane these days, close to the state government Olympic decision makers. Hopefully Matt Smith, our new Leichhardt federal MP, is working with him through our council to promote our destination as the obvious choice for the Olympic Triathlon. Maybe the feds can contribute dollars to our Palm Cove promenade. In my conversations with TTNQ, Tourism Tropical North Queensland, over the past couple of years in particular, we share 4 specific primary ambitions for a revised Palm Cove Master Plan. They are quite specific. 1, create the required linkages for Carriota Close and French Street, east-west through Lot 100, to provide for traffic issues now and anticipated increases in traffic as predicted in towards 2050. 2, create a tourism vision and overlay of the Palm Cove waterfront. 3, extend the scope of the Palm Cove Streetscape and Landscape Master Plan to create a Palm Cove Master Plan, including a highway entrance statement. 4, adopt a vision of a future pedestrian esplanade, a promenade, as the future for Palm Cove. So are we just another pretty tropical suburban beach that investors consider just another asset on their balance sheet, alongside their BHP shares or their pork belly futures? Or is there more to us than that? Will our own White Lotus happen on double? Are we up to becoming the world's most outstanding international destination for health, vitality and romance in the tropics?
What happens in Thailand stays in Thailand.
Oh, what does that mean?
It means we're not dead yet.
Amen. Amen.
I think the cosmos brought us together. I'm going to help you bring your joy back.
Look, we still have a lot of joy at the Cove, Chelsea, but we can do better if we choose to do so. Or we can hide in the woods like a shy deer and choose bowls and bingo instead. What's it to be? There is a website, palmcovevision.au, and we're also on social. Links to our social media can be found on the website. Till next time.